Hello all. There are people joining, but looking at time, let's start so that we can have enough time. Um, Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to all of you joining us from across the Asia Pacific and beyond. On behalf of the ICVA, ADRRN, and AIDMI team, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to today's virtual roundtable on key actions areas for addressing extreme heat in the Asia Pacific, lessons from regional platforms. Thank you for taking out the time to be here. Your presence reflects not only growing concern about the impact of extreme heat, but also a shared commitment to resilience, equity, and action in the face of changing climate. Extreme heat is no longer a distinct risk. It's a present and growing reality across the region, especially in our region, Asia Pacific. But we are not starting from scratch. Across the Asia Pacific, governments, civil society organizations, and communities are already acting and learning. Whether it is installing early warning system, greening urban spaces, or strengthening health systems, practical solutions are emerging. What we need now is to connect the dots, scale what works, and ensure no one is left behind. At AIDMI, from our engagement from SREX IPCC report 2014, we started actively addressing extreme heat issue. Most recently at APM-CDRR, we also moved this agenda, and also in connection with that RHPW, most recently with ICVA within. As a follow-up, we have this roundtable. We are more at AIDMI, we are spending our more and more energy and time for and with small businesses to protect them against extreme heat in urban areas, and in rural areas we are more focusing on small farmers. Together, these efforts reflects a growing recognition that extreme heat is not only a climate issue but also a development, health, and equity challenge. The regional networks and organizations such as ICVA, ADRRN, UN OCHA, the Asia Foundation underscores the importance of collaborative, inclusive, and adaptive responses that build resilience from the ground up. Before moving ahead to request speakers for the thematic presentations, would like to take 2 minutes for the launch of SouthAsiaDisasters.net on today's roundtable theme. I request Manish Patel to share the web link in the chat box and also share the screen. The SouthAsiaDisasters.net issue by AIDMI outlines strategic action to address extreme heat across the Asia Pacific, emphasizing collaboration, equity, and localized adaptation. Drawing on insights from leading organizations and networks such as ICVA, ADRRN, Mercy Crops, Child Fund International, Duryog Nivaran, Dakar, Sharp, and the National University of Singapore. This special issue stresses early warning system, nature-based urban cooling, and inclusive governance. This issue is co-edited by Asma Salim from ICVA and Takashi Komino from ADRRN. This virtual roundtable is designed to be both informative and interactive. We will begin with expert insight, followed by an open discussion where we invite your questions, reflections, and ideas. As we gather today on April 26th, it's important to also recognize World Malaria Day, a reminder of the ongoing battle against preventive disease that disproportionately affect vulnerable communities. The intersection of public health and climate resilience is becoming increasingly clear. I request, please use chat box for introduce yourself, Please use chat box to share any knowledge resource that you think useful for all of us on today's theme. Please use chat box to ask questions. We request speakers on limit their presentation for 8 to 9 minutes maximum. Our goal is not just share knowledge, but to strengthen the collective action needed to tackle this pressing challenge. Whether you are policymakers, practitioner, researcher, or community advocate, we are part of the solution. Let's use this time together to listen, learn, and live with fresh momentum to address extreme heat, locally, regionally, and collectively. We have very energetic experts with rich experience on shaping, designing, leading initiative in the region. So let's start. First, we have Ms. Asma Salim from ICVA, Asia Pacific. Asma provides support in setting the direction of ICVA's work within the region and strengthening meaningful participation and linkages of regional and local actors in humanitarian coordination, preparedness, climate action, and partnership development. Asma, salam, and many thanks for joining and contributing. Over to you. Hope you're able to hear.
Yes, thank you very much, Vishal, for the introduction. Manish, can I have my presentation on screen? If you can help me out on that.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. So nice to see such a great group of people. And I would say that whoever here in this group is definitely an expert and have a very keen interest on the climate, on things happening, especially the climate space. Now we call it extreme weather because there's a lot of organization who are scrapping now climate change on their website post USAID fund cut. So that's I would say interesting to see the dynamics changing, and we now are using different kind of words at the moment. So yeah, it's a very different space at the moment, the way things are happening. But I'm sure that if we beat COVID-19, it's nothing compared to what we have endured. So without further ado, next slide, please. So I can quickly jump on to the conversation we are going to have on the heat wave. And as you already know, my introduction from Vishal, I'm working with ICVA as a deputy rep for Asia Pacific. We are covering a region from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, till all the way to the Pacific. And if somebody who's not familiar of ICVA, it's a network of NGOs. We are based in Geneva, but we got the regional presence, and through that regional presence, we kind of tackle a lot of regional issues and kind of highlight that what's happening at the country level, regional level, and make sure that we highlight those issues at the global level. Heat wave and climate change is something which I won't say that ICVA is as an expert, but of course it's such a cross-cutting area, and all of I would say all of our major membership is totally keen to work on the climate, and that's why one of the reason of having me in this conversation is our membership. And AIDMI thanks Mahi for having this conversation, because he keep on pushing us, and our members are keep on pushing us to work on the climate space and making sure that we tackle and we handle bigger issues at the regional level and make sure that these remain on the discussions. In terms of the heat wave, it's not a new phenomena for all of us, and we keep on hearing what's happening around us, and it's something which is affecting us from the past 3 to 4 years, because we keep on having that experience. And as we know that Asia Pacific specifically, because we are more prone toward the disasters and more prone toward the more extreme weathers, now we see that it's record-breaking temperature are happening, especially in the South Asia. We have keep on enduring. I'm sitting in Islamabad at the moment, and the temperature we have, usually don't have it 40 degrees at this moment in April, but we keep on experiencing it, and we know that it's going to go beyond 50 degrees, in coming months. So this is something which just keep on affecting all of us, nothing new and nothing something which we can't relate to. And we know that this heat wave is becoming much more severe as we see other hazards. And one of the interesting thing about a heat wave, when we were reading and having different discussions with different experts, that it's more like a polycrisis for us. It is something which is deeply connecting and triggering the phenomena for all of us, and it's just coupled with other climate crisis, it just goes beyond our control. It has that element of interconnectedness with like droughts, with extreme weathers that's happening, whether it's a drought, whether it's like floods. It's just coupled with that, and also it has like much more deeper systemic and chronic effects on the systems. So that's something which we cannot deny, and we cannot avoid its importance, and why we need to talk about it, and why we need to make sure that we have much more better approach toward tackling heat wave. And of course, it has much more effect on the systems as well, because we have seen like the health system also collapses, and we have seen in the COVID as well, how the whole world health system was collapsing. And I think heat wave has the same effect on the health as well, and it has the same effect on the ways of working as well, and how it's affecting the marginalized communities. And if you look at now the climate-induced migration and displacement, we'll see more trends happening because of these trends as well. And if we go deep dive into the studies, we'll see that a lot of these phenomena are happening a lot specifically in the South Asia, and we have seen a couple of other examples in the Africa region as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, so one of the reasons behind this discussion, and this is something which is like a post APMC DRR, and here AIDMI and most of our members, we are having a lot of conversation on that. And one of the interesting question comes up again and again is why we need to engage like at the global level, regional level, and having this kind of conversation. And one of the key answers are in front of you, like having the power to convene, making sure that we have these issues being addressed at the regional and global level, to make sure that we have much more diverse group of actors who sit together and have a debate about it, that how to tackle it best. Because everybody has a different set of experiences, set of expertise, and set of resources where they can bring together and form a coalition or form a platform where they can actually, present much more better solution for us. And we have seen that innovation comes when a different multi-stakeholder come together and have that discussions. Of course, best practices are one of the key elements as well. I remember in APMC DRR, AIDMI and a couple of other members have presented a lot of pilot projects and innovative projects. They have been working at the very local level, and it was really been shared and appreciated by bigger institutes like ADB, World Bank, where they were present, UNDRR, and bigger UN agencies as well. And I think that's how, and that's why these platforms are very important to kind of, highlight those practices and also share that, and also replicating in different contexts as well. And of course, these platforms are also important to mobilize and having shared resources, because now we have seen that, of course, the global north has the power and they have the resources to kind of change the whole humanitarian and development setting and the finances as well. And we really need to kind of invest on how better and smartly we have to work on our resource mobilization as well. And but not of course, one of the least not the least one, but I would say the most important part is having much more peer learning exchanges as well, because these platforms provide us much more deeper exchanges on these on the things happening around us and the nuances that usually we do not find in our discussions. So that's something which is really important in these platforms, to be engaging and to be able to, have that meaningful participation as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in terms of from dialogue to action, because we always talk about, what is the best way, how we can engage, what is how we can actually support each other. And there are a couple of ideas that I have put together based on the conversation we had during the APMC DRR afterwards, and it keep on happening with our members. And one of the standout thing was having more nature-based solution, traditional solutions and community-driven solutions. We call it localization, we call it local-based responses and all, but these are all the jargons that we use. But the crux is that we really need, really want to engage, and really is the time to engage much more deeper a way of working with the local entities and locally led communities and all. And I know that it's been happening, but I think the scale we need is much more bigger. And of course, one of the important part is having those case studies and best practices being out there as well, because they definitely need recognitions, and they definitely need much more coverage through media and through different platforms as well. Of course, like I mentioned before, pool funding, pool resources, different financing models, seed funding, and different kind of grants that are already there. We definitely need more to kind of have more innovative approach through different kind of scenarios as well, not for the NGOs but also to the private sector and to other groups as well. Of course, cross sector partnership is also very important, because a lot of research which happen at the academia, in the universities, in the think tanks just remain there. It doesn't translate into the practicality as well, and with the NGOs who are working. So we definitely need much more partnerships and collaboration with the academia, with think tanks, with NGOs, with, of course, UN agencies and bigger agencies as well, like ADB, which invest a lot on that, and like UN agencies as well. And of course, we need to be mobilizing our networks as well, because as a network, when we grab much more attention to the global north and also the global south, to kind of have this discussion and keep on having these discussions. Because I think one of the important thing which we have learned so far is the collaboration. The more you collaborate in a deeper or meaningful way, the more you'll be able to find the solutions to the crisis. And I think this is something which keep on affecting all of us, and nothing new. And I think we kind of need to kind of come out from the traditional sources and be more responsive of how to handle these issues. I think I'm thank God I'm not over the time, so I'm going to hand over to Vishal again. And I'm happy to have more questions and discussion later on as well. Over to you, Manish and Vishal. Thank you.
Many thanks, Asma. Really very, required setting the tone for this thematic, as well as also emphasizing which very much required area, collaborative action, and especially in the context of Asia Pacific, as well as also you highlighted key actors in this area. So thank you so much. Let's move ahead. We have Takashi Komino, who is founder and general secretary of CWS Japan, current chairperson of ADRRN. He led humanitarian efforts across Asia since many, many years. Takashi Komino, konnichiwa, and many thanks for taking out time and joining us and contribute. Over to you, please.
The pleasure is mine. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining today. My name is Takeshi Kumino. I currently serve as the chair for Asia Disaster Reduction and Response Network, in short, ADRRN. So as Asma said already, as temperature continue to rise globally, Asia is experiencing unprecedented challenges that require both immediate and also coordinated action. And it has becoming emerging priority for disaster risk reduction in our region. Before getting into some specifics of the extreme heat, I would like to quickly just share ADRN's vision, which is to transforming our region to become the most resilient region in the world. This is ambitious, we know, but we firmly believe that resilience isn't just achieved simply by implementing isolated projects in silos, but rather it requires sort of embedding disaster risk reduction into everyday actions and awareness of citizens at the grassroots level across our region. And what we want to do is we want to become as a catalyst in creating this movement of resilience. So providing the platform where our members and stakeholders can co-learn, co-plan, and also co-produce solutions to this ever-increasing disaster risks that our region faces today. So some alarming trends that we are observing across our region. We have witnessed that unprecedented increase in extreme heat, record-breaking temperatures, 40 to 50 degrees, becoming more common. And they are not isolated incidents. They represent a concerning pattern that is expected to worsen in the coming years. For example, pre-monsoon heat waves have become more frequent and severe across the region. And it creates something that we recognize and call as a new normal. The urban heat island effect is exacerbating these conditions, and more people are living in cities, and because their rural lifestyles become unbearable due to the intensified climate impacts. And this situation really impacts the most vulnerable population, those who cannot afford to stay in the air-conditioned rooms or adjust their working conditions to avoid the heat risks. The effects of the extreme heat are particularly severe on a certain vulnerable population, I think. For example, the elderly, they face higher susceptibility to heat-related illness due to their physiological factors. Pregnant mothers encounter additional health risks when exposed to extreme temperatures. Children are often forced to reduce their schooling because of harsh conditions impacting their education. Outdoor workers, they face both reduced working hours and increased health risks, and directly affecting their livelihoods. And those who are living in informal settlements, such as urban slums, they experience some of the worst conditions. They have poor ventilation, inadequate cooling system to trap heat in densely populated areas. So low-income communities typically lack access to proper cooling facilities, making them disproportionately vulnerable to heat-related illnesses. And these vulnerabilities aren't distributed equally, and we must recognize that these disparities when designing our interventions. And also the impact of these extreme heat are not just the heat phenomenon itself. It goes beyond immediate health concerns. It creates substantial economic and social consequences. For example, the food security. It's threatened as heat stress reduces the crop yields across the region. And it's compounded by the irregular rainfall patterns that we observe. The labor productivity suffers when outdoor workers must reduce their work hours or face the health risks, and it affects their income and broader economic output. Traditional lifestyles, for example, the nomadic practices, are increasingly strained as historical adaptation measures prove insufficient for today's extreme conditions. Education, something I already explained, but we're seeing children miss school during extreme heat events, and it creates a learning gaps that can have long-term consequences. And also, it's very concerning that almost everyone in affected areas is experiencing some form of loss and damage in their daily lives, which is often not captured in our statistics. And this isn't a future problem, it's happening now as we speak. And these extreme heat is not happening in isolation. It often triggers a cascade of secondary disasters that amplify its negative impacts. For example, the prolonged heat leads to drought conditions. It creates water shortages that affect entire communities. Dry conditions also increase the wildfire risks. It threatens homes, infrastructures, and natural ecosystem. Water scarcity becomes a critical issue. It threatens not only the agriculture, but basic human needs that people rely on. And these interconnected hazards require strategic investments. in preparedness and mitigation. And we know that many heat-related deaths and illnesses are preventable with proper early warning system and also the preparedness measures. And networks like ADRRN, we believe, can play a crucial role in gathering these like-minded practitioners to share knowledge and develop a comprehensive approach that address not just the heat itself, but these cascading effects. At the ADRRN, we recognize that while disaster risks are increasing, their impacts can be reduced with appropriate mitigation measures. When we always prioritize community-led adaptations, as we've seen firsthand that strategies incorporating local knowledge and cultural practices are more effective and better tailored to community needs and ultimately more sustainable. And this approach allows for optimal integration of the traditional knowledge with modern science about disaster risks and mitigation techniques. And communities have been adapting to environmental changes for generations, actually. Our role is to support and enhance these efforts rather than replacing them. And we believe that there's tremendous potential for co-learning across our region, as many countries are experiencing similar hazard profiles, and we can share the successful adaptation strategies that respect the local context. After all, we believe that it's really about capacity sharing. You know, Asia has ample capacity within our region. It's about sharing what we have. So at the APMCDR, we coordinated and we led the drafting of the CSO commitment to action, addressing the hotspots of vulnerabilities to advance Sendai framework implementation. And our commitment revolves around these 5 pillars. I think my time is running out, so I'm not going to go through all. But the first one, and it's really the core value that we have, is really to put community resilience at the center. Now, looking ahead, ADRRN is launching concrete initiatives to address these extreme heat phenomenon and other climate-related challenges. This year, we are introducing a community-led climate adaptation fund, specifically for our members who work directly with the communities. And we provide financial resources for innovative local solutions and adaptation practice. We're continuing to invest in local action. We're supporting the grassroots initiatives that can be scaled or replicated across similar contexts. Our knowledge sharing platform will amplify these lessons learned, and we try to ensure that successful approach of community-led adaptation benefit communities beyond their origin through cross-learning. And through the regional coordination, we're facilitating collective impact that maximize our combined efforts. We believe this extreme heat phenomena is a significant risk that we're facing today. But through collaboration and these community-centered approach, we hope that we can contribute to building the resilience to this growing threat. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and look forward to a discussion. Thank you.
Thanks to you for moving into the same flow from the beginning to now, and very much focusing on vulnerable population, but why they are vulnerable. So it is very much important to consider those aspect barriers and to address those. And thank you so much for your leadership at ADRRN and your commitments that you have shown for 2025. Locally led adaptation is key around this aspect. Thank you so much for your valuable contribution. Now, would like to invite Mr. Maxim Elsiu from UN OCHA. He is having decade of UN experience in the development and crisis context. rich experience in project and program management, donor relation, and environment affairs. Maxim, many thanks for joining. Please share your presentation. Thank you. Maxim is here. Hello. Okay, I think maybe some system issue or network point. Let's move ahead, hoping that he reconnect soon. May I request Nandita Baidu to share her presentation. Ms. Borua has over 25 years of professional experience working on gender, human rights, labor, migration, and human trafficking issue in South and Southeast Asia. Nandita Baidu, many thanks. Please.
Thank you. And thank you, Vishal, and thank you, Mihir and AIDMI for inviting me to this discussion. I represent the Asia Foundation, and I'm heading the foundation's country office. And those of you who may not know the foundation, just to very quickly say that we are an INGO. We are basically headquarters in the US, but we have 18 country offices across Asia and the Pacific. And climate and environment from an inclusive lens is what we are largely focusing on in most of our work. So I've had the experts speak already, and Komino-san's already pointed out a whole lot of critical issues within this ambit of extreme heat and heat stress that needs to be looked at. I am just going to build on what Komino-san said, and I am actually very bad at PPTs because they distract me. So I don't have a PowerPoint. I am just going to share my thoughts much more in a conversational manner, and hope that I'm able to make some contribution. When I was thinking about this issue, when I was approached to talk about it, I said, well, it's interesting because the world's talking about climate, and world's talking about the environmental and climate degradation and everything problematic that comes from it, starting from pollution, which is a big issue for those of us who are in India. We know it. We're suffering from it every day. Talking about water distress, talking about agricultural distress, but somewhere in that whole conversation, this very silent but the continuum distress that extreme heat causes seems to get left out from the center stage of the conversation. And unfortunately, the disaster and the impact of extreme heat is something which is felt across the table, irrespective of where you are. Your ability to counter it might vary depending on your economic and your social status, but it's something that everybody feels, and yet it's not something that gets talked about or addressed as a centrality to the larger debate on climate and environment. It's also given that there is also a lot of data that talks about why this becomes very critical. I was going through some of the WHO report, and it said that heat-related mortality for people over 65 years of age had increased by 85% between 2002, 2004, and 2017, 2021. Now, that's an extremely scary figure to be looking at. It also said that between 2020, 2019, approximately 489,000 people, there were heat-related deaths that had occurred, and 45% of these were in Asia and 36% in Europe. To make the point that it's not just about Asia, if you look at it, I think in 2022, alone in Europe, there was a disastrous extreme heat summer, and something close to 60,000 heat-related excess deaths occurred in that period. India, on the other hand, has seen 2023 February as one of the hottest February since 1901. So there is the evidence on the fact that this is something that needs to be dealt with, and urgency is on the table. But I think we need much more effort to really push for greater action, to really look at this in a much more inclusive, much more concerted and collaborative way. What is happening and where the challenges are? We have heard the two former speakers talk about the fact that impact of excessive heat and extreme heat related disaster is inequitable, and we know it impacts people who have less resources, who are unable to find cooler places to go into, who are forced by just their economic needs to be out and about just as for their daily labor and their daily wage, are definitely much more at risk than those of us who can afford to probably take recourse to remaining protected from extreme heat, have the air conditioning, have the luxury of not having to necessarily go out into the streets.
Hello, Nandita ji. Manish, are you hearing us?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe some network issue with Nandita ji, but meanwhile, Maxim is here and would like to request him to share his presentation, and hope that by that time Nandita ji will be reconnect. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, I will do so just in a minute. Okay. Should be working, right?
Yes.
Just
Please make it
let
full
me-
screen. We can
yeah,
see.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I need to. Okay. That should be better.
Yes, yes, perfect.
Mm. Okay. Do you see full screen right now, right?
Yes,
Without
please.
any extra. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. So thank you for invitation, first of all, and yeah, I'm here to very briefly speak and mostly give the more an amplification of the voices that we've already heard during this roundtable. We do recognize extreme heat and heat waves across the region as an urgent humanitarian issue right now. Just as a quick brief for somebody who is maybe not aware, like OCHA's key mandate around the humanitarian coordination, policy, advocacy, information management, and humanitarian financing, which I would try over this short presentation give links around how this corresponds with extreme heat response and actual
Just one
potential.
request. It went to presentation mode. Can you make it full screen so we can read?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it working right now as it is or not?
No, it is same.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, let me just because it's trying to help me.
Can I share screen from here?
So
yes,
let's
yes,
do
please.
it. Let's do it.
Yes.
Manish, please share the screen.
Yeah, and then the second one and probably the third one, but maybe the second one we just reiterate the mandate of OCHA, which is UN Secretariat's entity that is focused on humanitarian response, and this is the key mandate of OCHA. And please, the next slide, that we would have the most recent message on extreme heat coming from our emergency relief coordinator, recognizing the emerging concerns on heat waves specifically in Asia Pacific region, and also mentioning that nearly half of the global heat related death occurs in Asia region. And the second slide. So impacts on of extreme heat is so there is of course direct impact of extreme heat to on causing illnesses, fatalities, and also what we of course need to underline is that it's disproportionately affecting vulnerable and mostly vulnerable people, like poor people, displaced people, also elderly people, women, children, and workers that is occupying the certain professions, like the construction workers or such. And what's also has a compounding effect, meaning that the heat waves itself can also hit healthcare services, also upscale food insecurity and displacement, and also contribute to further increase of social and economic inequalities. And the third, the next slide, please. So it's also an extract from the report that OCHA and IFRC published. I will give the link on that report in the end of this short presentation, but here are the key things related to heat waves extracted from the report, which is heat waves as a major cause of suffering and loss of life. Also, the role that heat waves play in exacerbating inequalities. Also, the interlinkages between the global broader aspects of climate change, like the droughts that exacerbates further heat waves, and also linkages to worsening social and economic situation in certain regions. Yeah. Also, the idea that every further climate change will make the heat waves more deadly, and also about the cascading impact of heat waves. Next slide. So this short slide is also corresponds to critical needs and gaps. So we mostly should be focusing on preparedness and early recovery more, as we need more and better prepared action plans, contingency plan, early warning systems, and also enhance community level preparedness. Also, another thing that should have more of our attention and resources is the data and reporting, especially when it comes to heat-related illnesses, fatalities, that could give us more data and more, say, control over the situation, giving us the opportunities to focus our now shrinking resources to most critical areas, right? And also, of course, focus on resource and capacities, like especially the local capacities, especially when the heat waves or other extreme weather events happening. Usually these local capacities are overwhelmed, and we should make sure that the international community is there to support. Thank you. And then next one. In terms of strategic action, I would say, again, the early warning. So the comprehensive early warning system that is linked to anticipatory humanitarian actions would give the opportunity to address those who are the most in need and the most at risk. In terms of capacity building and preparedness, we should focus on local capacities, mostly on local humanitarian capacities that are the first wave of responders. And in terms of better integration and more visibility in humanitarian response plans and other framework documents, especially giving more attention to risks and related response at the national, at the regional level, at international level, at the extent possible. And the third, then, yeah. Of course, we should focus on partnerships in these uncertain times of uncertainties and new risks and new quite a time that we have to leverage and make synergies across different sectors, across different humanitarian coordination mechanisms, across also humanitarian and development sectors, which is also something that probably was been like neglected for, or let's say under focused for many years, which I personally believe that has a lot of capacities to support those in the person of HDP Nexus or humanitarian development collaboration. And of course, funding. Funding is something that is critical these days, especially when the donors are reducing their contributions. And while, of course, each of us are working towards more engagement with donors and other funding sources that we try to elaborate on. Yeah, so we should also probably give more focus and also show the donors that there is a heat waves, there is extreme weather events, extreme heat, and other new challenges that requires funding, right? And with the next slide, I want just to quickly share on something that unfortunately I've recently learned that it didn't make it through the ongoing funding crisis as you know it. There was a project, now it's on hold, but I believe we could give it some more or better intention. It's the project that foresaw the quite comprehensive anticipatory action towards the extreme heat preparedness. The pilot country was Pakistan, but and funded by UAE, and which I thought worth mentioning in terms of the comprehensive approach. And I hope, unfortunately, this project I think is put on hold right now, but I would love to explore ideas. How can we make these kind of projects more, more pilot projects like that, so we could have some cases on and a comprehensive approach to heat waves and related events. Yeah, and the last, with the final slide, I wanted to show you some resources that my fellow colleagues in OCHA and UN globally developed, that worth looking at. It's a Asia Pacific snapshot that our information management colleagues made back about 1 year ago about the Asia Pacific impacts of extreme heat. It's what we probably, it's our like office's information product. On the center, you can see the most recent. It's dated by say end of 2024. It's United Nations Secretary General Call for Action on Extreme Heat, which is quite a comprehensive document, and I believe it's worth reading. And I could recommend it to anyone, at least to acknowledge on the UN vision on how can we approach this new emerging challenge. And also the report made by OCHA climate team and IFRC is the report on extreme heat, which is a global outlook on extreme heat, but also has I think examples and cases from the region, and also it is much more detailed, much more technical, and you can have a look at this, the most comprehensive out of these three. You can have a look at this report and get more technical advisory in case you would need so. And the last slide, I just want to thank you all for your time. Please reach out to us if you would need any support, if you have any ideas, and we are of course looking forward to enhance our collaboration towards the more effective response to our current global threats. Right? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maxim. Finally, network works, and thank you. By that way, we have very insight, useful from UN OCHA perspective and their resources, especially your points about cascading impact is really, becoming more and more crucial and witnessing on the ground and need to be addressed. Same way, equally, that earlier presentation from Takashi also highlighted about the data and reporting and its linkages with loss and damage because of extreme heat. These are the points very much, challenging aspect that we all need to address in 2025 in coming years. So thank you so much. Now I have already received a few questions and also would like to encourage if anyone want to ask question, use chat box or raise your hand. And I request please switch on your camera if you are with the good network. That will be good to have our interaction live. By that time, I have a couple of questions. I'm requesting presenter instead of one question to all, one by one. There is one question that I think, Takashi, you can address very well through ADRRN and your rich experience. The question is, which locally led adaptation solutions, such as early warning system, green infrastructure, or community-based response, have shown promise? And how can they be scaled or replicated?
I think, frankly speaking, we're still learning as a network what's the best locally led adaptation that we could amplify. And we are hoping that through this community-led adaptation fund, and we'll be able to gather good practices that we can capture and amplify. But I think one thing that we can say from our DR experience is that if each of the community would have these risks being assessed and the actions are pre-planned, then the response would be more coordinated and more effective. And I think that can be said to every type of risks that we see. Because when we try to react to something that is not planned already, then it's very chaotic, and it's not effective. And so, what happens if there's say, drought, heat wave warning from the meteorological agency, what do we do as a community? What do we do about the livestock? Do we sell it to control the numbers of the livestock? And that kind of community-led action needs to kick in. So I think it's about working with the communities, understand the consequences of these risks, and decide on the threshold of these indicators to create action plans. And that way, I think things can be more effective. But we're hoping to learn more from our colleagues' practice.
Thank you so much. Yes, learning, ongoing process more and more and collaboratively, and pre-planned, coordinated efforts is required. Thank you so much. Question to Asma. What are the most critical impacts of extreme heat on health, livelihoods, and affected population in Asia Pacific region? The understanding of this risk is really, important to understand. Thank you.
Thanks, Vishal. And I think this is something which all of the presenter have shared during their presentation as well. Like Maxim already mentioned that it has a compounding effect. Of course, it will create much more pressure on our existing crisis, because Asia Pacific already is in a crisis mode. There's always disasters. If you look at the South Asia, it's always been either drought or either floods. And you will see in the monsoon time, in 2 to 3 months, you will see a lot of disaster. Look at the local level or at the regional level, you'll see a lot of things. So, and the heat waves just coupled and make it more, much more critical for the local or communities and for the people who are living on the ground. We'll see impact on the health, so the most important one, because it just creates much more effect and much more pressure on the health. And we see that the health is already in a crisis mode. If you look at the countries and look at the communities, health system is not as good as before. Infrastructure in terms of the power, as somebody also write down in the comment box as well, that we are not thinking about much more deeper problem, the infrastructure, the power, the electricity. It will have much more pressure on that, and that will of course create pressure on the economic growth. It will create much more problem. Again, food insecurity will become much more critical as well, because your crops, it will affect the crops, it will affect the conditions of the fields and everything. So that it just have much more triple effect than we can expect. And I think one of the critical thing which I was one of the panel discussion with one of the government policy maker 2 weeks ago, and it was really interesting to see their their feedback on the heat wave, because I think it's also important to acknowledge that we as a policymakers, the people who are in the legislations, they also need to understand a heat wave as a crisis rather than a phenomena, a weather event for 3 to 4 months. So that's also important, because the way they were dealing, and everybody know and everybody expecting that there's going to be a much more higher temperature, but the way they were discussing was as a one-off climate event, rather than something which is going to affect us much more deeper than that. So I think that awareness and having policy makers and legislation on board, that this is something which we have to deal with, and as seriously as we are dealing with floods, drought, or other climate crisis, is much more important. And I think this is something, one of the key takeaway for us when we were having that discussion. So I think that's also one of the crises that we are dealing, and we will be dealing in the future as well. So yeah, I'm stopping here. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Yes, very much consciousness, climate consciousness, very much important at all level. One question to Maxim. We all are, very actively using knowledge resource that UN OCHA is producing, and that, really providing, filling the required gap. On the other side, as this is about network and regional platform, how can we all make UN OCHA more impactful?
Yeah, thank you for this critical question. And this question about making any or probably now any of the organization in UN system more impactful is a critical topic because we all see the funding cuts, as you may have heard. And now our new emergency relief coordinator, who is leading OCHA, specifically for the last many months, we've been wrapping our heads around this question: how can we make the organization more effective, more impactful? So this will come. Certainly, I probably you've heard of different optimizational measures, but this is a high level. This is high level exercise that is been done on a global level. So I just really hope that I mean, very talented people are involved into this exercise, and I believe in their capacity to do so, and do their best to, because in the end of the day, I mean, our impactful means that saving lives and do better preparedness and do better partnerships, do better this and that. So it's all directly related to our critical mission, right? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Useful. There is one last question, but very much, keeping open to all the speakers. Unfortunately, Nandita ji is not able to reconnect, but any final words by responding this question, very important. Who and what are we missing out in our plans and thinking? So anyone, Maxim, Asma, Takasi, if you can respond.
So very quickly from my side, I think we need to work. So the community is definitely there. We need to see community at the center, but local government who work very closely with the community, we need to work very closely with them too. So local communities and local governments, I think, will be the key sort of stakeholders who need to really drive this resilience movement locally.
Yeah, very practical. Yeah. Anyone else? Any final point from Maxim or Asma?
Yeah, I would just suggest more what I'm missing, the data, more data, because this probably is, at least from my mindset, it's something that we all, this is our evidence base, right? For donors, for communities, for governments. I mean, without data, we just talking, right? So probably more data, more science-based approach. So this is, yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll add to what Takashi and Maxim already mentioned. Of course, because a heat wave and these phenomena are so localized, and it varies from city to city, or area to area. We definitely need much more local knowledge through local government, through local NGOs, local communities, to make sure that this happens. And of course, coupled with the think tanks, academia, and people who actually work on this phenomena scientifically, to make sure that it's coupled with traditional knowledge and also with the scientific knowledge, to make it happen more sustainable and more practical approaches for communities.
Thank you. Thank you. Very practical solutions that we all need to push in our action. Thank you. Already took much time, but now handing over to Mihir, requesting Mihir to share his concluding remarks. Mihir, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Vishal, can you hear me clearly?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. No, what a pleasure to listen to the thoughts which are so generously shared by ICVA and ADRRN, UNOCHA, and Asia Foundation, though that got interrupted. I'd like to draw, not conclusion, there is nothing to conclude per se, there is so much to do. So I'd like to suggest the way ahead and put more focus on that. And I'd like to draw from the presentations which are made here primarily, but I would also like to make sure that the special issue where very interesting examples and experience and directions are shared, I'm drawing from that as well to an extent. I think what we are talking about is five important things as far as way ahead is concerned. And these are the departures from what we are doing now. That's how I hear from these presentations. One of the important departure is going beyond relief to adaptation, extreme heat adaptation to extreme heat, but also adaptation is mitigation. And that's what I picked up from Asmaji and Rishalbhai from what you said. And promote community-led responses such as rooftop cooling, shaded public spaces, urban greening very much that reflects local realities and priorities. And especially in high-risk areas like low-income communities in urban areas and also rural areas. So that's sort of one departure from beyond relief to adaptation as mitigation in Asia Pacific. And that's, I think, mainly policy work. The second departure I see, or shift, moving from learning per se to accelerate regional actions, knowledge about the actions. So how do we move from, well, quickly gather what we have learned in Asia Pacific about what is done around extreme heat and start exchanging that very much to take actual actions on the ground. And that's what I pick up from Takashi-san and Nanditaji's presentation, that second move. The third move I see is having lots of pilots, something concrete happening on the ground, something that Takashi-san already mentioned they're about to launch. And there, from heat risk reduction to urban cooling. So not pilots, not examples, not efforts, but overall urban cooling is something far more comprehensive, far more integrated, far more well-connected. And that's something in Asia Pacific. I see the shift that is needed. It means embedded extreme heat considerations into development planning, housing policy, infrastructure design to reduce vulnerability in urban areas, etc., etc. The fourth shift I see, and I'll stop at 5, there are many, but I think for our purpose, is the shift that we heard about enhanced early warning to data system. UNHR, OCHA again emphasized that from enhanced early warning to data system for anticipatory action and invest in localized heat monitoring, early warning system, and risk mapping to protect health, livelihood, and frontline communities, especially. And that's something I picked up from Nanditaji's and Maxim's presentation as a shift for way ahead. And the last way ahead as a shift I see for Asia Pacific, building on the past, what has been done, is the fostering policy alignment, which has started, not adequately done, I'm not saying at all, but move on from policy alignment to urgent collaborations. So we need to quickly start making very robust, meaningful, and operational collaborations in the region by aligning local actions with natural disaster risk reduction actions and climate resilience strategies, while building partnerships among governments, civil society organizations, UN organizations, regional networks, and have a coordinated collaborative action. So these 5 shifts I see coming out from what we have discussed. Each shift doesn't mean the previous part is finished. It needs to be finished, But while that's being finished, we need to start moving to these five areas. And AIDMI is committed to work on these 5 shifts. So we will let you know what we are planning. But we would very much like to know from you as well, if you have any suggestions as a participant, as a panel member, as somebody you know who's not been able to be here, do feel free to let us know. Send an email to Vishal Bhai, and we'll be very happy to include that. So what we are committed to have is a very short, succinct report of what's being discussed, which will include what the eminent panelists have has mentioned and underlined. Also the way ahead, the shift that we are talking about, and where it could go from here. With again, many thanks to Asma-ji, Takeshi-san, very much. Maxim, to you, Nandita-ji, and all the participants. I see the list and I'm overwhelmed that you should take interest in this. If there is anything we could do to live up to your expectations, please do let us know. Vishal Bhai, please, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mirbhai. Really, 5 concrete actions to move ahead for us. Thank you. I would also like to convey thanks as well as also my apology because of time, but I really see the chat box full with very insight and different perspectives. Especially thank you for Tatsi, Imran, Navdeep, Jovan, Abigail, Michael and Cloudy Abbey. Really very insightful experience, comment and questions that you have raised. My apology for as we have not covered the all aspects that so far has been asked, but of course we are committed and we will address these things. On behalf of ICVA, ADRRN, and AIDMI, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to all the speakers, panelists, and participants who join us for today's virtual roundtable. Your insights, experience, and practical recommendations have been invaluable in shaping a deeper understanding of the urgent and collaborative actions needed to combat extreme heat across our region. Let us continue to build on today's dialogue to drive resilience, inclusive, and locally led solutions for communities most at risk. Thank you once again for being part of this important conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you all. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.